Welcome. Thank you for your attention today. The objective of this induction is to prepare you for your work at Whakatane Mill. A safe and secure workplace is important to you and to everyone associated with Whakatane Mill. To help us achieve that, we need you to understand some rules around personal safety and understand and follow our emergency procedures, incident reporting, and hazard management processes. You're about to see a presentation which will give you the essential information you need to contribute to a workplace that's always safe for you and for your workmates. At the end of this induction session, you must complete a questionnaire which proves you understand the most important information inside this presentation. Your induction booklet is your passport to the site, so keep it with you at all times. Write your name, date, and the name of your Whakatane Mill supervisor in your booklet. Contractors and visitors must sign in and sign out each day. There are 4 places where you can do this: at the mechanical workshop, in the foyer of the main office building, in the foyer of the technical block, upstairs in the powerhouse. Visitors may only sign on in the foyer of the main office building. In the event of a local or site-wide evacuation, ensure that you report to the evacuation group of the area you signed into. Note that no children under the age of 12 are allowed on site. It's compulsory for employees, visitors and contractors to wear personal protective equipment which meets our minimum site standards. For contractors, it's your company's responsibility to supply personal protective equipment. Personal protective equipment and personal protective clothing must be maintained in good condition. There are 4 items that are the minimum personal protective equipment for this site. These are safety boots, high-vis jackets or overalls, safety glasses, hearing protection and hard hats are also required in designated areas, along with other specific personal protective equipment. All persons must carry appropriate eye protection at all times whilst on the Whakatane Mill site. All pedestrians on site must wear high-vis jackets, clothing, or overalls which meet the night-day transport standard in designated high-risk areas. Those areas where vehicles are present, such as the log yard, the coal bunker, the raw materials and reel stores. Hearing protection must be worn in noisy areas, as indicated by signs at building entrances, or where a task analysis has identified the need for hearing protection. Noisy areas include PM3, the boiler house, the log yard, and the groundwood mill. Hard hats are compulsory in the log yard. Hard hats have an expiry date of 3 years from the date of manufacture or 2 years from date of issue. Random audits are conducted during maintenance shuts, and these include checking of personal protective equipment to make sure its condition is up to standard and that it hasn't passed its use-by or expiry date. Whakatane Mill has an emergency system that all employees, visitors and contractors must be aware of and follow in the event of an emergency. For the safety of everyone on site, it's essential that in an emergency situation, everyone follows the correct procedures and follows any instructions given. Visitors and contractors must sign in upon arrival and sign out when leaving site. This is your record of being present on site and will be used in the event of an evacuation to ensure your safety. Should you encounter an emergency situation and need to raise the alarm, dial 7777 from a mill landline and ask for help, or use the mill radio system to contact the ERT. Inform the team of the nature of the emergency and the location. Be sure to press the hash key when you're finished to release the radio system. You can also call them using your mobile phone. The number's 07 06 3877. You can use a wall-mounted alarm call point to initiate a local evacuation. Local evacuations will be signalled by audible and visual alarms within the building. Site-wide emergencies will be signalled by the same alarms as well as the roof-mounted 2-tone sirens. The mill is divided into 6 local evacuation zones, each of which can be evacuated using local sirens or bells, leaving the rest of the site operational. The evacuation zone for local emergencies is the same as for site-wide evacuations. The general evacuation point is located at the northern fence line of site, adjacent to the raw material stores. In the event of a tsunami, there's an additional evacuation point on the upper floor of the PM1 building, adjacent to the technical building. Evacuation wardens are stationed in each area of the mill and will check staff lists and sign-in books at the evacuation points in the event of a local or site-wide evacuation. If you're registered in one of these books, it's important to report to the correct warden in the event of an evacuation. Staff and wardens will receive instructions from the emergency response team. This is a group of staff specially trained and equipped for responding to emergency situations. They are in charge of site during emergencies, and all instructions from these staff and the evacuation wardens must be followed immediately. Only attempt to contain the emergency if it's safe to do so. Always maintain a safe exit route out of the area. Report all injuries to your Whakatane mill supervisor so correct treatment can be sought, information can be captured in Risk Manager, and corrective actions can be implemented. Contractors, report the incident to your Whakatane mill supervisor and your employer. A near miss is something that did not result in an accident, but under different circumstances it could have resulted in injury or harm to personnel or plant. You must report any near misses to your Whakatane mill supervisor or the health and safety manager. A hazard is anything or any situation that could cause harm. It might be an uncovered drain, dust, or even noise. We have an online hazard register in Risk Manager. Hard copies are available on notice boards. The person supervising work must ensure that everyone's briefed on the hazards before they commence work. You must attend toolbox meetings every day prior to commencing work on this site so that potential hazards can be discussed. If you see something that could cause harm, you have a responsibility under the Health and Safety Act to take immediate action. There are 3 steps you must take. First, if you can, remove the hazard or isolate it so that no one gets hurt. Then you must let people know who might be affected by it. Finally, you must report it to your Whakatane mill supervisor or the health and safety manager. Plant isolation hold cards. When people need to interact directly with a machine and there's a risk it'll start or move, an isolation may be required. Trained staff will identify where isolations need to be applied. Isolate the equipment: electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, steam. Complete a hold card and reconnection order. Apply the hold card to the isolation and hold the reconnection order. Check all isolated equipment before starting work. Plant isolation group. Often there are many points of isolation, and for these an isolation listing is produced. Hold cards are placed on all isolations listed by the isolation supervisor. Those applying the isolations sign the isolation listing. Additional people needing to work on the machine sign onto a group isolation card. When the work is completed, all people are to sign off the group isolation card. Isolation supervisor and individuals match the reconnection order to the hold card, remove the isolation, and test the operation. And no one can remove your hold card except you. All breaches of our isolation policy will be treated very seriously. Permit to work. When any work is undertaken on site, there are associated hazards. To control these hazards, for routine work, we'll have written SOPs, work instructions. For non-routine work, a task-based risk assessment must be done. If the risk score is greater than 10, or any of the following permits are required, then a permit to work must be initiated. Working at heights, confined spaces, 33 kilovolt compound access, excavation, gas, hot work, electrical work, plant isolations. Permits can only be issued by trained permit issuers and include details from task-based risk assessment, list of other permits required, controls to be employed, a list of people authorised to work under the permit, sign on and off. All people working in the area must sign on to the permit before work commences. All those working under the permit must sign off when their work is completed. The permit is a 24-hour document. All plant and machinery must be handed back in a safe and tidy state. The use, sale, transfer or possession of drugs or controlled substances on site is forbidden. Employees, contractors or visitors on site while under the influence of drugs, alcohol or controlled substances is forbidden. Any person found to be in breach of this policy may face disciplinary action, which could result in the termination of employment. Smoking is only allowed in designated smoking areas. Maps showing designated smoking areas are on most notice boards around site. If you're not sure where these designated smoking areas are, ask your Whakatane mill supervisor. Employees found smoking outside a designated smoking area will be subject to disciplinary action, and contractors that are found smoking outside a designated area will result in consequences for your company. No private vehicle is allowed on site unless it's used as a tool of the trade. If your vehicle's just a people mover or you're dropping off tools, then your vehicle must be removed to the main car park. If you need to work from your vehicle on a regular basis, you must obtain permission from your Whakatane mill supervisor, who will issue you with a vehicle permit, which must be displayed on your dashboard at all times. Your vehicle must be parked out of any main thoroughfares. You may use Whakatane mill vehicles, provided you have the appropriate licence, written permission from your Whakatane mill supervisor, and have read and signed the Whakatane mill motor vehicle policy. There are a number of large machines operating on this site, and the operators are focused on their job and often have very limited visibility. If you are walking into an area where plant is operating, you need to stop in a safe location, make eye contact with the operator, move through the area when they indicate it's safe to do so. When in doubt, people give way to plant. The speed limit for this site is 20 kilometres per hour. Within the buildings, the speed limit is walking pace. When driving, keep to the designated roads. You must not use a mobile phone whilst driving on site. Bicycles may only be used for travel to and from home. Bicycles cannot be used during work. Contractors should provide their own electrical equipment, but in some circumstances may borrow equipment from our number 2 store. This equipment must be returned in good condition. Test tags must be on all electrical extension leads and power tools. Test tags must be current. If they're not current, leave them in your vehicle and borrow one from number 2 store. Industrial standard type plugs are used on the site, and domestic type plugs are used in offices and other selected areas. Chemicals on site are managed through our Chem FFX program. This is accessed through an icon on your computer desktop. It holds all information on each chemical used on site. All staff will be trained in the use of this software as part of their induction. Any new chemicals being brought onto site must first be approved for use. If it's not in the Chem FFX system, contact your supervisor or area manager to get it approved. Old chemicals that are no longer used must be removed from site and disposed of responsibly. They must also be removed from our record system at the same time. Chemical spills must be dealt with immediately. If you see a spill or have a spill, you're expected to block the drain as quickly as possible. Spill kits are available and clearly labelled on walls around the site. If you can't manage the spill yourself, report it to your Whakatane mill supervisor. The Whakatane mill makes coated paperboard as a key component of food packages, and therefore must conform to regulations imposed by different national and international laws or commitments. WML board must be clean from foreign material due to physical, chemical or biological contamination for all grades manufactured. Whakatane Mill Limited requires everyone to adhere to hygiene practices, keep work areas, plant and equipment clean. Work must not contaminate the process. Dispose of any object that could find its way into the product. Use the containers provided for the disposal of Stanley knife blades. Glass breakage must be reported and cleaned up immediately. Do not carry loose objects in pockets, pens, pencils, etc. All food brought into the mill must be kept in the lunchroom or lockers. You must wash your hands after eating, drinking and using the toilet. All cuts and grazes on exposed skin must be covered with a blue plaster. Inside production areas, while production's in progress, certain clothing and jewellery rules apply. No wristwatches are allowed. No jewellery is allowed, except for plain wedding rings, plain wedding wristbands and continuous loop earrings. Clothing must have no pockets in the upper body garment. No sewn-on buttons are allowed. That brings us to the end of this induction, and you'll be given a questionnaire to complete. Please write your details in full, without abbreviations. For example, write John Smith, not J. Smith, and include your email address. Answer every question. This induction covers you for 24 months from this date. You'll be notified by email when you're due for your next induction. Thank you for your attention today. This has been a Digital Elements production. Digital Elements. Imagination realized.